I'm Scott Allen Miller. It's the 29th of August, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. And today we're going to be looking at houses. We filmed 2, we looked at 4. We'll talk about all 4, but we're going to show the 2 that we filmed, and we're in different parts of the city here in Leon, and I think it's going to be fun. So let's go look at houses after the vlog. So our day was all about looking at houses today and looking more in the kind of $200 general ballpark. And we looked at 4 today. It was a really busy day of looking at houses, and I'm gonna get to so I'm gonna break this up. We're gonna talk about 3 of them today. One I'm gonna show you because we only filmed 2 and we're gonna save 1 for tomorrow. So the one we're gonna look at today is an apartment on the west side of the city. And I actually really like this one. So that one's pretty exciting. And then we're gonna talk about 2 that we're not gonna show just because we didn't film them. They didn't make sense to film. And then I'm gonna save the house that we saw for tomorrow's show because otherwise we just bundle these all into one show and it's very hard to find things that people are looking for, and the show just gets really, really long. So we're gonna break it up like that. We're also gonna talk a little bit about the GoPro 12, which is not out yet, but it is locked and in the hands of reviewers, not me, because I'm not cool like that. Plus, no one in Nicaragua is an official reviewer for GoPro, it's just that you can't do it. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, because we've been talking about whether or not the GoPro 12 is going to be something I'm getting. I think we know enough now to tell you why we are or are not going to be getting it. All right, so first up, let's take a look at this apartment. Today's apartment that we're going to look at is in the San Mateo neighborhood of Sutiava. That is the west side of Leon. So we're going to take a moment, bring that up on a map so you can see where we are. This is a really small neighborhood or comunidad, residencia actually. It is a residencia within the Barrio Sutiava, and it is a desirable location. And the thing that makes it really desirable is a few things. One, it's on the beach road, so anyone who lives in San Mateo can get out to the Ponaloya Las Bonitas beaches with a minimum of effort. Anyone who wants to go east into the city, it is walking distance, and there is the Mercadito. The small market is very close. You can get to most things pretty easily, and a taxi ride is not impossibly expensive. So it's a pretty good location of just being in the middle of things. The thing that makes it super desirable is that it is right off of the Colegio Calasanz, which is one of the premier private schools in the area, and it is very close to 2 other private schools just slightly to the west. So it's in an area with 3 very high-end private high schools, colegios. Directly west of it by about 1 block, and then north 1 more block, is the Universidad La Salle, or La Salle, like who knows how they pronounce it, but it's written like La Salle, and it's the same as La Salle University in Pennsylvania. That university does have campuses throughout the country, but a really major one is there in Sutiava. It is the westernmost of the higher educational institutions within the Leon zone, Leon being a university town. But by having that so close, that makes this a community popular for teachers, professors, and students. So you're getting a lot of people who are coming from outside Leon, but from inside Nicaragua in most cases, who want to live in this area. So those who can afford to be closest to these higher education opportunities, whether for work or as a student, this is where they want to be, or one of the places that they really want to be. So it's a very desirable location and very visible. So it's a very safe neighborhood. It often doesn't look super special when you're kind of looking at it from the outside. But when you spend time there, even though it's very small, you realize that the houses are quite nice. The layout of everything is quite nice. It is a desirable spot and very safe. So this is an area we've done a couple of episodes on previously and have walked around, and I've said, you know, it's really nice. It's a place that people we know from here in Nicaragua will look at and really are interested in living in. It's an excellent combination of things. So what we're looking at today is an apartment in San Mateo, and tomorrow we're going to be looking at a house located extremely close to that apartment, so you're going to be able to get an idea of not wildly different sized living conditions, but apartment versus house, and just like 1 or 2 streets off from each other in the San Mateo area on the lower San Mateo road. There's an upper San Mateo road and a lower, and that's it. It's a very small neighborhood, and it's not gated. It is open into Sutiava, but because of the school across the street street from it, it feels awfully private. On the backside or the south side, it backs up against the Reparto Uros, which is the neighborhood bordering the airport, which is not as desirable by any stretch. It is much lower income area, but it is also, it's very barrio, but it is also decently safe. It's a nice area and very quiet. So it's a pretty cool area, and I'm excited to be able to show these apartments. So this apartment is one I've wanted to see previously and did not have a chance to. I'm really impressed by the size and the price with the location. Now, when I say apartment, a lot of people are always like, everybody has a different definition of apartment, even within like the United States, let alone between countries. So let's talk about that real quickly. This is an apartment building that is a single building with multiple apartment units in it. It's still a single floor. It is only 4 units. It is gated, meaning that it is a single large structure with its own gated area. So you go in an outside gate and then you have the entrances to the 4 apartments in this particular case. That gives a great degree of security. Of course, you're in a safe neighborhood. That's a great starting point. Then you have high walls with an outside gate. And then you have 4 apartments that are all sharing like a big parking and courtyard area, which is nothing special to look at, but it's very safe. So you have neighbors who can see each other. That provides security. It would be very, very difficult to break in. And not an area where you would expect that to happen. So it's a very comforting place to potentially live. Everyone has their own parking. You have a shared area, live a little spot for gardens, and then the interior spaces I think are really good. It's not currently air conditioned, as most things are not, but it does have the option for putting in air conditioning. It would not be that big of a deal, and it's potentially really nice spot for someone. This is one of the best apartments I have seen yet. Apartments are, we've said before, few and far between here in Nicaragua, especially in Leon. Like in Managua, of course you're going to find them, but here in Leon, when people say I'd like an apartment, because everybody would, they're pretty hard to find, and this one is awfully nice. So it's something that I think is great to show and think about, because it's a pretty nice option given the space. And I want to point out, before we get into it and show it to you, the layout of these apartments, I think, falls into a really similar to the layout of a lot of the smaller houses, the planned houses that we've seen, like in Casa Leon or like we've shown in Ciudad Sandino. There's a particular layout that works pretty well here, where you have the combined living space, the kitchen, living room, kind of open space on one side, 2 bedrooms, possibly 3 on the other, with a single bathroom. That layout seems to recur quite often in smaller spaces like this. And this is an apartment that when you're in the apartment, you could mistake yourself for being in one of those houses in Casa Leon, only you have shared walls with people rather than being standalone. So that said, let's go do a walkthrough and actually show this apartment. I just wanted to kind of set a stage so you knew what we were going to be looking for as we go through it. And remember, this is an apartment, and before we get into it, I'm also going to say the asking price on this is $180 per month, so that is pretty affordable. It is more expensive than being in Casa Leon, but this is actually more space, but it is not a private standalone house. So those are the factors that really matter there. It's also worth noting this is much closer to the city, and it's on the Punaloya Road. So the physical location is quite a bit more expensive and desirable than Casa Leon, which is a little ways outside the city. So that alone is raising the price on the per square meter just a little bit. So, all right, let's go take a look at this house. All right, we're coming into the house. We actually have a nice little, this is the parking lot, like on the left, like a car could pull in there, or motorbike is better. Little space we're putting out, just like 2 chairs, a small table. Obviously the lawn hasn't been cut, or the garden, whatever you want to call that, but there's enough to like do a little bit of like flowers or something to look nice. It's cute, nothing special, but we step inside and this is really great. Like, first of all, this is bright. Right, the walls are bright, good tile, but a good space for an apartment, kitchen, kind of eat-in, and then living room. And then the backyard, obviously very small. It's just enough to do laundry is really the intent here. Very basic. You're not going to come out here and hang out. But, you know, if you really wanted to put in the effort, you could do something with it. But this is more or less that standard design that we saw in Casa Leon and other videos in standard houses all over the country, except this is an apartment. And these rooms are actually slightly larger than we've seen in almost any of those. And those windows are bigger too. So while the windows are only front and back, remember it's an apartment, so you've got to have that front to back air. We actually have a good amount of light, a good amount of space. These are big rooms. I actually prefer that front room with the big window to the slightly larger back room. This one clearly has more space with that smaller window. I prefer the other. And then the bathroom, nothing special, but very standard. A little bit narrow, but really not that bad. It looks, I think, narrower than it actually is. It is narrow, no question. But I think very, very serviceable. And overall, you, of course, no air conditioning in here, but easy to add, but great spot. Like, this is a fantastic apartment, and this is only $180. So you really have to think of it as the same kind of price as one of those really small houses, but you're getting that apartment style living instead of the house style living, and a little bit more space. So it's a different mix, right? And the 180, some of that is this is a very desirable neighborhood, and this is the shared space. This is where like the cars will pull in and turn around. You can see people with bicycles. There's a little bit of garden there. I wish they would grow something green on that wall. You can see the other apartments. But very secure because you have the gate from the outside there and then the inside. And then I just got some shots of the neighborhood. This is the little street directly across the street from that particular apartment. You can see the neighborhood here. And looking up the street that way. This is a really nice area. Now, I do want to point out, I'm going to say this again later, this particular one is not currently available. It is just an example that we were able to get of what is offered in this neighborhood, 180 for a number of apartments that are just like this. But we managed to get a walkthrough, and I think it's a really great example of what's available in this region. So that was our tour of the house in San Mateo. It's a great area. Well, the apartment in San Mateo. I think it's a really good space. Now, it turns out by the time we actually made the video, this one is no longer available. But it gives you an idea of what pricing is like. We actually, while we were filming this, some people decided to take it. So, but not the person who's going to look at it. We looked at 4 houses this day. He did take one. We're going to talk about that in a second, but this one went very quickly, but beautiful space, beautiful location, very happy with it overall. While we were there, we found out about a house right behind it, and that's the one that we filmed and we're going to show tomorrow. We started the day looking at those. Then we heard about one in, and I'm going to pronounce it terribly, so I'm just going to write it and put it on the screen if I can, which is a neighborhood right by the bus terminal, which is on the east side. It was totally not where we wanted to be for today's viewing. And so we drove over there, and it's in the market, in the Mercado, around Terminal, so Mercado Terminal, which is a very rough area of the city. I wouldn't say it's like dangerous, but it is difficult to live there. Traffic is nuts all the time. It is loud and busy all the time. And it's a spot where you're very likely to be like pickpocketed. So you're always like very needing to be alert just constantly. And we were going through it trying to find this place. It was very interesting actually, because we pulled up through the Mercado, and then there was kind of this driveway, and we're like, wouldn't it be funny if it was this driveway? And then it turned out it was. And they opened the gate, and there was a long, really beautiful green wall. We're like, okay, someone put some effort into this long driveway. So we pulled over and we walked in, and you go past a bunch of like a cell phone store, and the Mercado is always weird. Anything around the Mercado is weird. So there's a cell phone store and like some doctor's offices, and then at the back of this building on this long driveway was an apartment. And we went in, and so it was they were asking $200. And it was a 1-bedroom, and the outside was actually quite attractive. But you walk in, and the front room was very small, and then it was like a tight turnaround and a little 1-bedroom, and the inside was really kind of like it would have been okay if you needed it and you were desperate. It's certainly livable, and it was 1 bedroom, so if that's all you needed, it was a tight space, and it's in the middle of the Mercado, which is really interesting, but all of us are just walked in and go, nope, like there's no way. Like the value wasn't there. It should have been cheaper, right? It's in an area that I suppose if you're really looking to be in the Mercado for some reason, then this is like really desirable, but for normal people, you don't want to be in the Mercado. That's a huge negative. So for me, this was a $100 a month apartment, but they were asking $200. It was a very small bathroom, a very small bedroom, a very small living room, a decent layout for what it was. Not the best condition, but not bad. The outside was quite nice. It was in a really weird spot, but it was gated from the Mercado. So like, I mean, it was okay. But I felt that we all felt that the price was absolutely out of line with other things. It should have been either extremely high end, and a one bedroom, or it should have been really cheap, being a one bedroom that was not well appointed in a very non-desirable area. So did not in any way compete with the other things we saw. So that one we just ruled out. We saw it. We grabbed some drinks on the street, some refrescos. That's where they just do fresh fruit juice or whatever in a bag. I really like chia with tamarindo. And from there we went back to Veracruz, which is east of San Mateo, a little bit more rural. San Mateo is technically the Barrio Sutiava, and Veracruz is Reparto, Veracruz. So it's the thing past Barrio Sutiava, a little bit more country. Still not country, right? Still Reparto, but a little bit more. And went in there, and this one I was really feeling this just from having, like, as soon as they showed me the pictures of it, I'm like, I know this place, I know what's going on, this is going to be good. And we got there, and it is a 3-bedroom. It's on the back, so it's the less desirable part of Veracruz, but it's at the top of the hill, so you get a little bit more wind. And I'm hoping to show this one in the future. We're not going to show it today, so I'm just doing a little bit of description. But it went well. It has a good-sized living room, decent-sized kitchen, big outdoor space, 3 bedrooms, a back laundry area, a garage, an indoor garage, which is pretty standard. That kind of goes into the living room, and you can close off different parts of the house. Again, no air conditioning, just that's almost never included, but you can basically always add it. And we looked at that and just walked in and we said, this location is so good, and 3-bedroom, like all this, perfect. So he ended up taking it on the spot, the person that we were taking around looking at these today. A 3-bedroom, much bigger space. I mean, so much bigger. To have gone from this thing in the Mercado in a non-desirable area, and the place was just ridiculously tiny, a tiny itty bitty apartment, and then basically a studio it was a little bit better than a studio. And then to go to this, to a house with 3 bedrooms, some utility space, a big living room, a big kitchen, which was his own room. I can't remember how many bathrooms it has. 2, I think, and then an indoor garage, like completely different, in a very desirable address. And it's not just Reparto, Veracruz, it's Los Altos de Veracruz, the gated residencia inside of Reparto, Veracruz. Like the difference between tiny, undesirable to pretty good size, desirable, and to be the same price. It was $200 a month. We're like, what? Why? So he took that. So we had a really successful day, looked at 4 places. 3 of them were really nice. One was quite not. And all of them were either were 200 or 180. That was the range. And we were very successful. Found a great place, very serviceable, very affordable, with more than is needed, in a great location. So we were really happy with that. So that was our real estate for the day, like going out and hunting houses. And I think that went really, really well. So we're very happy with the overall results of the entire day. We found something great. And found some really interesting things, filmed some interesting things, and hopefully we'll be able to show you that one. We're not going to show the one in the market ever. We're not going to go back there. There's no reason to film it. Like, it's just, I wish I had filmed it, of course, but then I hate filming places when you're like, oh, this is terrible, right? And walking through and being like, look how bad this is. Like, I don't want to really do that, but it was bad. And it took us 30 seconds. We just walked in, we're like, yeah, in no way does this compete with anything we've already seen. Like, every single thing we saw today, except for that one, would have done the job. And then the last one was the piece de resistance, but all 3 of them were good. And for me, I actually kind of prefer the San Mateo places. I love Veracruz, like totally love it. But the San Mateos were so interesting and different. Like, I think their locations were really special. So we'll be showing the other San Mateo tomorrow. So I saw the first review from someone I watch a lot with camera stuff about the GoPro 12. And so let's start with the big rumor that was going around was that the GoPro 12 was going to be mostly the same specs as the GoPro 11, but with a new sensor, very specifically a 1-inch sensor, which is significantly larger than the sensor that is in the GoPro 11. The GoPro 11 sensor is actually smaller in effective size than the one in the 9 and the 10. So I'm recording on the 11 right now. I use the 9 quite a bit, but they're almost identical in size. And what they did is they changed the form factor of the sensor in the 11 and got a higher megapixel count, higher sensor density, and that gives some really nice advantages. There's a lot of things you can do with that, but it also reduces light sensitivity, all other factors being equal. So it's nice that there's like, you can do this full frame thing, you can reframe afterwards, you can do a lot of cool stuff using the high pixel count and the 8x7 sensor, but the GoPro 9 had slightly better chances of working better in low light, but tiny a bit better. So really it was a good trade-off, and I think the GoPro 11 is a step up for most people. And I generally record in this crazy bright sun, so the sensor in the 11 is fantastic for people like me, and a lot of people use GoPros, right? I don't fit the normal GoPro user profile in any way, shape, or form, but in this particular aspect, super bright light, I do. GoPro users have a tendency towards being on the ocean or in snow out during the day because it's specifically an action cam, a sports camera, and it is immensely good at that. And the small sensor size is ideal for sports under normal circumstances. There's always an exception, but generally you want really small sensors for sports. For a number of reasons: small size, overheating, don't need to worry about low light situations, handling high light situations really well, and really importantly, super deep depth of field, something you generally don't want in, say, a portraiture camera, but something you really want under normal circumstances in an action camera. So really small sensors, generally what you actually want. I know in other circumstances, right, you're going out to buy a really expensive mirrorless $3,000 Sony, A7S4, whatever. You want a giant sensor, generally. All other factors equal, you want a bigger sensor. But you actually want a smaller one under most circumstances with going to an action camera. So a lot of people, that's counterintuitive. The GoPro 12, the big rumor is that it was getting the 1-inch sensor, which is a huge improvement, but not a crazy one. That's already rumored that the DJI Pocket 3, which is actually smaller, was going to come with a 1-inch. The DJI Action 4 came out just a month ago, I think, and that had a 1-inch sensor. So there's a movement in the field towards that. The Insta360 R1, I believe that's the right name, came out last year with a 1-inch sensor and kind of pioneered that in the space. And it's worth noting that 1-inch sensors are generally considered the smallest that you can use for really serious photography. So, for example, the Sony RX line, which is not a professional line, but it is a very good point-and-shoot line, like super good, that uses a 1-inch sensor. The RX kind of refers to it being a 1-inch sensor. The HX line, for example, refers to it to being a 2/3 inch sensor, and is certainly quite a bit less pro than the RX line. The HX line is fun. I like those cameras from a these are cool standpoint. You can do a lot of great things, and for a normal person, HX line is excellent. But if you want that step up, and like Valentina just got, she uses a Sony RX, gets amazing results, and the Sony ZV-1 vlogging camera is an RX repackaged in the ZV vlogging form factor. So it's an RX under the hood, but it's part of the ZV line. It's like the ZV line is not a type of camera, it is a style of body and use case. So each one in the line is one of their other cameras repackaged into the ZV ecosystem. And so the ZV-1 is their RX 1-inch sensor line. The E10 is the Alpha 6000 line repackaged, and the ZV-E1 is their flagship Alpha line repackaged into it. So 1-inch sensor, APS-C sensor, and full frame sensor. And then there's, of course, medium format. Sony doesn't make currently. But those are kind of, with medium format, full APS-C, and then micro 4/3 is the one between APS-C and 1-inch, but Sony doesn't make one of those. And then 1-inch, those are kind of the 5 sizes. 1-inch is generally considered a bit too small for pro, but some really good pro cameras do have it. It's very popular in camcorders. And then the medium format is often forgotten because it's kind of a specialty large format, with the primary professional sizes being the micro 4/3 as the smallest, APS-C in the middle, and full frame on the large. But there are these fringe, those are the ones under the bell curve, and then you've got the 1-inch on the one side and the medium format on the other. But there's a lot of 1-inch equipment out there that's not pro. It's a very popular size for high-end amateur equipment. That's kind of the sweet spot for really good amateur with 2/3 inch kind of the main size under the bell curve. So all that said, the rumor has been that the GoPro 12 was going to move to the 1-inch sensor to match its two big competitors, DJI and Insta360. However, people who've gotten it in their hands say it does not have that. Now, from an action camera standpoint, I agree with GoPro's decision. I think the smaller sensor makes way more sense. From my personal use standpoint, I really was looking forward to the 1-inch sensor because one of the strongest things that's a problem, one of the biggest problems with the GoPro is that it doesn't handle low light well. And the hope was that moving to a 1-inch sensor would improve that. Now, do I need really good low light in my GoPro? The answer is actually no, and especially now, because I have just moved to having that Sony ZV-1. I don't have it in my hands, but it is waiting for me at my staging location in Houston. That has the 1-inch sensor and a really fast lens, and the combination of the upgraded sensor, bigger sensor, and really good lens means I can do way more low light with that camera that still fits in my pocket than I can with the GoPro. And for most low light filming situations, which are often indoors like restaurants and stuff, that's a far better form factor to use than my GoPro, which is actually pretty awkward. The GoPro is perfect for walking around and constantly talking to the camera. It's really awkward for taking into a restaurant and filming things. It's weird. The Sony, not so good for walking around and doing this stuff in bright light in the middle of the day where I'm just talking to the camera, but quite good for taking to a restaurant and having it just pull out of your pocket and film whatever's going on in the restaurant. So I think I'm solving the problem that way, but I was looking forward to a GoPro upgrade. However, now that it is out and they've looked at the specs, remember, it does not actually unlock until the morning. So everyone who has one can't unlock it until the morning of September 6th. If you're on September 4th, you can take it out of the box and look at it, but it turns on, but it doesn't like fire up. It just goes and says Hero 12 and sits there waiting for you. So the people who have it, they know that they have them working. They know that their batteries work. They can get them charged up. They can read the box and all the stuff that comes on it. And basically what ended up happening is the GoPro Hero 12 is exactly the GoPro Hero 11. All the same specs, same sensor, same processor, same capabilities, everything. The only thing that appears to be different is one of their stabilization technologies seems to have gotten an upgrade, but it could just be a name, right? It's from version 5 to version 6. It probably is an algorithmic upgrade, but it's probably exceedingly minor. That doesn't make it bad. It's just not a huge thing because the version 5 is excellent. And the one thing they're advertising on the box is that it now has HDR videos and photos. That is honestly a big deal. For people like me who sometimes film with the iPhone 13 and I'm getting that HLG HDR footage, I notice that I like working with it better in 220, and it's a little bit better than the Rec 702. It gives a little, you guys notice sometimes when I do it, you're like, oh, stuff is brighter, like it's more brilliant. What are you doing? It's because I'm in HDR. I would love to have my everyday footage in HDR. My plan when moving to some new cameras is to start doing a lot more in HDR, but at the moment, that is not a feature worth upgrading the camera. Same sensor, same processor, same everything, same lens. Every single feature is the same. It just now adds the code to allow it to do HDR photos and videos. Would I like that? Sure. Am I going to pay $500 to go to that feature? No, not at all. So I had been thinking that the 1-inch sensor was going to push me to the GoPro 12 almost for sure. And it would have, I think. I probably would have ordered it actually and had it next week because Paul's going to be in the US and I'm already ordering other things. I would have gotten it. But with this, I'm not going to buy it on this cycle unless something happens and I have to replace a GoPro. We're just waiting for the GoPro 13 at this point. Now, we'll see in 2 days officially what happens, right? On the morning of the 6th, maybe someone's going to open it up and be like, whoa, it's got these features we didn't know, or it just looks so much better we didn't realize. I'm open to that, but based on the specs and stuff, nope, no killer feature. It's just an incredibly minor incremental upgrade, and only a feature that was held back on the 11 to allow them to put it into the 12. No hardware update whatsoever. So that's really disappointing that this could all be pushed down in firmware to the 11 and they just are not, which I understand, but come on. This is a cycle that they're going to get hit really hard, that people who are existing GoPro owners are not going to be investing in the 12. It is really just people, if you got to buy new, of course, buy the 12, not the 11, but if you're going to be upgrading from something that is working, chances are you're going to want to stick put just like I am. Stay put just like I am. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you got questions, you want to know about things, different neighborhoods, houses, prices, whatever, get down in the comments and ask away. If you're wondering how to get to the comments, because I get this a lot, you really have to do it from the computer. Go to the webpage, youtube.com/. Scott Allen Miller vlog, and then when you go to the episode, just scroll up and there's a whole place where you can read and leave comments, comment to other people and stuff. Be friendly, leave nice comments. But people who are on like the TV or sometimes on your phone, like on the TV, there's no way to get to the comments. On the phone, it can be really challenging. On a computer, it's super easy. So that's why some of you are just able to comment immediately, and some people are like, where does this exist? Also, when you're asking, like, how do I reach me by email or whatever? Yes, I put it on the screen on every episode. It's also down there. If you're on the computer, scroll down. All that information's right there, right? How to reach me, my social media, all links to all kinds of things. That's all down there. So it's very easy if you need to reach me in some different way. As always, like, subscribe, share on social media, other social media, the social media down below, everything, link me, do all that stuff. Tell your friends, tell your family, and I will see all of you tomorrow.